Hey guys, today's video is going to be a little different. I wanted to show you different techniques that I use to turn my plushie patterns into low-sew patterns. I think this is more of a resource video if you're wanting to design your own plushies, or even if you're coming from the how-to section from one of my plushie patterns. I will probably link this in my how-to section. If you can see his back legs, those are no-sew, but they really don't look like it. Sorry for just putting his butt on the screen, but if you can see it, they're three-dimensionally on there, but they're no-sew. And some other simpler ways for no-sew, like adding on these wings and even showing you how to do a dual color piece and then adding it on. All of this is no-sew. The only sewing on the birdie is the beak. So sometimes when things are unavoidable, it has to be sewn on, like this birdie's beak. I wanted to show you the way I sew it on to make it really seamless so that you can hardly even tell it's been sewn on. I hope you guys enjoy the short video this week and that you find it helpful. These are techniques I didn't know about when I first started making plushies, and as I designed different patterns and more complex patterns and implemented them along the way. So maybe this video could save someone a few steps and show you some techniques you could put into place to make your plushies lower sew. Let's head over to my desk and I'll show you different ways of crocheting pieces on, and also how to sew pieces onto a plushie seamlessly. One of the easiest ways to attach two pieces is to crochet them together instead of sewing them together. Like this birdie wing, for example, for my flamingo. I want the outside to be a darker pink so that it matches the body, but then I want there to be a peak of color on the inside of the wing. So I crocheted these two pieces and then I crocheted them together, and it ends up making a really sturdy piece that you can then crochet onto the body. I'll show you how I attach the two pieces really quickly. So these are both the same pattern. First, I crocheted the inner color wing in this lighter pink. Then I crocheted the outer color wing, and after I finished, I didn't fasten off because we're going to use this crochet around to attach the two pieces. So I can go ahead and insert my hook through the next stitch on the outer wing. And then for the inner part, we want to line it up so the feathery part is together and the curved edges together. Now I'm going to insert my hook through the next stitch on the pink one, kind of line them up as good as I can. I have both pieces on the hook. Now I can pull through and pull through again. And that's our first single crochet attaching them together. Now we're just going to single crochet around here. Normally, only thing that's different is we're going to be going through both of these and attaching them together. So insert my hook through the next stitch, find the next stitch on the inner color, and single crochet. One of the things you want to be aware of when you're doing this is make sure that the outside is facing outside and both of the insides are facing each other. So now I'm just going to go around making sure I don't skip any stitches, just going through both of them and single crocheting normally. When I first started making the big birdies, I tried to just have like one wing at first and it looked super flimsy, and that's actually why I ended up doubling it and crocheting them together, just so it was a lot sturdier and kind of stiffer too. It won't flop around as much. And then after I did that, for that reason, I was like, it would be so cool if the inside of the wing was a different color so that just a little bit of the accent kind of peeks through. This is a great technique to use anytime you want to create a multi-dimensional piece to add to your plushie. You can do the inside one color and the outside another. And if you're using a knot plush yarn, it won't be as thick. So it's pretty noticeable that it's two pieces on this, but if you were using a thinner yarn, like even a chenille yarn, I don't think you'd notice as much. So there we go. I went all the way around. Now I can fasten off, and I'm actually gonna tie these ends and like stuff them in here. And then I'll take this and I'll sew really quickly just across to like tuck all the ends in so I don't have to worry about them coming out. But depending on what you're working on, you might not have to do that. This is just for my wing for my birdies. And there you go. It's really nice and even. There's not much color migration on the outside at all. And on the inside, I don't mind the way it looks either. I think it looks nice. So that's how you could crochet two pieces together instead of having to sew the inside and outside together along there. If you had to sew these two pieces together, it might still look neat and tidy if you really took your time, but I bet it would look messier than this, so this is a lot cleaner looking and sturdier in my opinion. I'm still working on my flamingo, and I thought I would show you another technique I use all the time in a lot of my plushies to cut down on sewing. I'll put some pictures of plushies that I've used it on right here. I'll add arms, a tail, ears, tons of stuff by crocheting it on to the main body, and it's basically the same technique that I just showed you while attaching the two colors. I love this technique for adding larger pieces to plushies because it adds them so securely and evenly, and you don't have to worry about sewing them on. So for this pattern, I already know where I have to place them for them to be even, and I know I want my feathers to be facing back. So first step would be to visualize how you want the piece to look after you add it on. I want the back of the wing to be facing the right, and I want it right here. So I can just flip it over and line it up, and it's kind of like those two. We're just going to crochet through both of them at the same time. Insert your hook, pull up a loop, pull through both loops on your hook, and there's a single crochet. And now you can do that for as many as you like. For this pattern, I'm going to do 10. The only thing to be aware of when you're doing this is to make sure your stitches are all the same tension. You want them to be neat and tidy, and you want it to be securely on, so you can kind of make your stitches a little tighter. And also something to be aware of is try to be really careful you're not skipping any stitches here, because that's pretty easy to do, and I've done it a bunch of times. So insert your hook through that, and then you can bend it back and just be really sure you're not skipping any. So I'm going to do 5 more, and then my wing will be attached to my bird. There we go. And now when we go to work around the next row, we'll be crocheting just on this. We don't worry about any of this, and here's what it looks like. It's just so even and clean. It's a really great way to attach pieces, and it's on there. It's not like if you pull it, you'll see any gaps or anything. This technique is a little more advanced, but it is very easy if you get the hang of it. We're going to be crocheting on some more three-dimensional shapes. So for my dragon, I want his back feet to be like this, and I want to crochet them on. I'll show you some other examples of plushies I've used this technique for before. My raccoons and red pandas, this is a technique I use for their front feet, back feet of the dragons, back feet of the Mothman and friendly moth pattern. The dragon pattern was when I actually came up with this technique, and I was so proud of myself because it was an idea I had kind of figured out for my red panda and raccoon pattern to make the front feet look more three-dimensional. And then when I had the idea to do it for the back feet of the dragon to make him in a pouncing position, I wasn't even sure it would work, and then it did, and I was so happy. So I'll show you how to do it really quickly. The reason it's more advanced is because you might have to adjust the placement. With low sew plushies, that's the downside. You're always going to have to adjust the placement of different pieces because your tension, I'm sure, is different than mine, your yarn is different than mine, and your hook. So just be aware of that. So first, we're going to crochet one side of the foot on. So simply just go through the piece you're adding on and then go through the main plushie body, and do that for the amount of stitches it says to do it for, or however many stitches you feel like really attaches the piece well. That looks good to me. I want the toes to be facing forward like he's pouncing. Now if you can see, we just attached the back. I'm going to keep going, attach the back of the other foot, then I'll meet you back around. So as you can see, I just crocheted around the back of the pieces that I want to add on, and now we want the feet to look completely seamless, so we're going to go and crochet around the front of them. The only issue being, if we do that and we don't take away any stitches, we're going to have a lot more stitches really suddenly, and it might look a little jarring. So what I do in my patterns where I use this technique is that I'm going to place some invisible decreases around the feet just so it looks a little more seamless. But we're going to completely ignore this back of the foot that we just crocheted, and we're going to be working around this side now. So I just did a decrease to help cut down on some of the bow. I'll single crochet my way around, do another decrease to cut down on some of the extra stitches. And then I'm gonna go right into working here. And now around the back of this other foot. I'll keep going and I'll show you how it looks when I'm all done. I made it all the way back around. And now you can kind of see the feet are on there pretty much seamlessly. The only thing is when attaching pieces like this to plushies, it usually always leaves a little hole right there and right there. So what I do is right now, before I even continue, is I take one of these ends and I just sew crisscross over the little holes before I keep going. That way I never have to worry about it. And as you can see, the feet are on there and really sturdy and even. I'll finish up the body of this plushie and show you what it looks like. Here we go. I just finished up the pouncing dragon body. And as you can see, the feet are on there really seamlessly. I love the way it looks, and I just love the technique because it's so simple and you don't have to worry about sewing on large pieces like this leg, where normally you would have to go around and sew the whole thing. Now that I've showed you a few different ways to crochet pieces onto a plushie, I thought I would show you some different ways to sew pieces onto a plushie, because sometimes it's just inevitable you're gonna have to sew something on. Having to sew 1 or 2 pieces on isn't that bad, because all I have to do is finish this and add some blush, and then my flamingo will be done. It would be way more annoying if I had to sew this on, sew both of the wings together, then sew the wings on. For all of my plushie patterns, I try to make them as low sew as possible now that I know how to do it, but it's always inevitable you're gonna have to sew some things on. I kind of think I want it right there, just like that. And this is like the larger style beak I came up with for the parrots, and I thought flamingos usually have larger beaks, so I would use that. When we sew this on, we want it to look like this around the edge. We want there to be a clear division between the nose color and the face. We don't want there to be crisscross all over, color migration, or anything like that. So I'm going to show you a very specific way that I sew pieces like this on when I want there to be a clear division between the two colors. This technique is heavily inspired by the mattress stitch. If you've ever made wearables, or sometimes you make like the granny square handbags or granny square in general, when you go to attach the granny squares, mattress stitch is a very useful stitch to use because it's not bulky and it'll keep the colors separate. I'm going to put the slip stitch part of the beak at the bottom. Things I want to be aware of is that there's the same amount of space here and here. I don't want the beak to be right next to the eye on this side and kind of far away on this side. So first we can just anchor down the beak by just looping around a stitch on the plushie. And now here's what we're going to do. We're going to loop up into the beak around the post of this first stitch. And now we're at the back of the beak. Pull it tight and we can loop around the next stitch on the plushie. We're kind of going to be sewing it around the back of each post. So insert your yarn needle back through the beak, the piece you're adding, loop around the post. So go back in. See, we're going to loop around that post and we're going to sew on in the back. And you see how clean that edge is? That looks really great. This way we'll never really be going around the outer edge of the piece that we're adding. We'll just be going up around the post and sew it on through the back, up around the post, through the back. I'll show you a few more times. So I just went around the post of a stitch on the piece that I'm adding, and now I'm going to anchor it down onto a stitch on the plushie. And if you can see how clean that line is, that looks really great. Now I really don't want to, but I'll do a few the way you shouldn't do it, just to show you the difference, okay? So when I first started crocheting, this is the obvious way to sew something on. You just go around and then go around. And I do see a lot of people doing that, and I'll show you right now what that looks like. If you can see, that will give you a bunch of stitch marks, sew on marks. It will make a line like right there, right there, right there. When this way, when you're going up and around the back of the post, you don't get any of that. So let me undo that stitch really quick, and then I'll sew around the back of the post all the way around so you can see what it looks like finished. Here we go. It's our finished pink lemonade flamingo big birdie. I think I did a pretty good job sewing on the beak. Can't really see much crisscrossing. On the bottom you can see a little bit where I tied the knot and then hid it inside of the plushie, but it doesn't bother me. I think it looks really great. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, even though it was a little different. I hope it helped you if you were struggling with one of my patterns, or even if you wanted to start writing your own patterns and needed like technique help from making it low sew. Oh, and real quick, I did want to say thank you everyone, because look at what Shopify sent me. So heavy. It's like a YouTube play button, but for Shopify, for getting 10,000 orders. So thank you guys so much to anyone who's ordered from my website. I really appreciate your support, and this is so cool. It's like my first crochet trophy. Anyway, that's my geeking out for today. I'm actually gonna post this video today, and it's Halloween. So I hope everyone has a great day, and I hope you all eat so much candy that you puke. Okay, bye.